Hey everyone, welcome to the Happily Ever After 40 podcast. We are being joined by guest Chanel today. I can't wait to have this interview. I've known Chanel since law school, although we haven't communicated a lot over the years. We went to law school. Um, and I knew Chanel was going to be a hustler. She was going to be, of course, to be reckoned with in law school. I transferred in, but I remember seeing her pregnant
Yes,
one day. And I think like a week later, she was like back and no belly. Like, baby was born.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I remember that for some reason. So, Chanel, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So yeah, Chanel has interesting story and history as far as marriage, relationships. We're also going to talk a little bit about career. Made some changes in her career after 40 as well. Oh, and the other reason why I knew you were a hustler, you can get things done. Because I remember we went to Mexico, our third year in law school. It was a BISLA conference. That was the Black Entertainment Sports Lawyers Association. And I remember you got like a scholarship or
I
somehow you didn't
did.
pay to get
I
there. And I was
did.
like, how in the hell did she get that? And like
Exactly.
she was getting things done. So I knew that she was gonna do well. So but first we're gonna start off with relations. When we met initially, when we were in law school, you were married. And so you had one daughter already, and then you had the baby that I was talking about that you were pregnant with.
Mhm.
And you got right back on the saddle. Just tell us a little bit about that. Do you remember that? I know you do.
Oh, absolutely. I do. I got pregnant our second year of law school. And I remember telling my OBGYN, look, I got to have this baby over the Christmas break. So
Okay.
she's like, I don't believe in induction. I said, that's fine. So the baby was due, I think she was due like on the 25th, but that was going to be cutting it too close. So I told everybody my due date was December 15th, right? Everybody. And I actually had her on the 17th, but I was like, I got to have her during the break so I could go right back to school. I'm a fuck out. But we call things that be not. We manifested it. Yes.
Yeah, that was amazing. I don't know, now having children, I don't, well, I had one daughter by then, but, now two other kids. I don't know if I could have done that. I just probably would have needed a little time, just a little time.
Oh no, she is, and she is by far the most analytical child I've ever met. She was a law school baby. I was pregnant with her the whole time I was in. So when you got to get things done, you get them done.
You do. She had
You get
contract
them
and
done.
negotiations in the womb. So, okay, so again, you were married at the time. When did you
Yes.
originally get married? What age were you?
Okay, I was 25 or 27. It was a late 27. I was 27 when I got married the first time. Yeah.
Okay. And how long were you married to your first husband?
8 years.
8 years. Okay.
Eight
So what
years.
was the
Yes.
good and the bad of the relationship? Because okay, so let me say this. I remember my first year of law school when I transferred in. So I was somewhere else my first year of law school. But they have everyone for orientation and they're like a lot of marriages do not make it if one partner is in law school. I was single, so I couldn't really relate, but I did see a couple marriages that just did not work when there was one partner in law school. So do you think that was an attributing factor or contributing factor to your marriage, or was it something else totally?
Not at all. I think law school, if anything, kept me focused on something different and headed in a more positive direction. But it did not have any bearing on the demise of my marriage. I think the marriage was just us. Law school didn't contribute in any way.
Okay, so you didn't get married super super young, although I think 20s is a little young, but not super super young. What was the reason that you think that you two ended up getting divorced after the two kids?
And it was actually 25. I had my got pregnant at 27. So
Okay.
what I think was you have two young people who have an idea of what marriage should be, right? And the thing that I've learned over the years is that should is where all the trouble starts, right?
Mhm.
You are trying to build a life together based on a bunch of shoulds. And so neither one of us had seen a functional marriage, anything work in our families. So we're going on all of this ideology and how things should be. But that has nothing to do with merging two lives together. So I think it was really the inexperience of how do you, at 25 years old, build a life together, and not lose your individuality and deal with all of the things that are coming, new babies, new careers. It just was not a fit. It just wasn't a fit.
Okay. Um, Usually before couples separate or divorce, there's usually a period of time in which you kind of know it's not working or you're kind of getting there. And what year do you think you realize, okay, this is not going to work? Or
Oh God.
let me just finish law. Let me get my degree because I we were in Louisiana and then
Mhm.
I relocated back to Atlanta and then you were in Atlanta after graduation shortly after that. So I'm not sure if you were still married or not when you got to Atlanta.
I
Uh,
got divorced. Man, I'm telling you, law school was exciting. So my second year of law school, I got pregnant. My third year of law school, I got divorced. So
mm,
I was actually divorced when we graduated. Um,
oh wow.
yes,
Okay.
absolutely. It was
Okay.
a power pack 3 years. Um,
Yeah.
Realistically, as ugly as this may sound, I think we both knew the marriage was not going to work by the third year of marriage. We stayed married 8 years, and we put forth a good college try. But I think by the beginning of year number three, we were like, yeah, this is not the move.
Wow.
But both of us were really active in church, and again, eyebrows deep in the shoulds, eyebrows deep
Mhm.
in the shoulds.
Okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
you moved to Atlanta, and I'm not sure if you have any family in Atlanta or not, but you had two young girls. So you were a single
Yes,
parent. So that is like that's just starting all over. Just
absolutely.
new territory as being a new attorney, a single mom, all of that. How did you navigate that?
I think again, I have a history of doing what has to be done. I went to the military at 17,
Okay.
straight out of high school. And so for me, I knew after the divorce that I needed to build a different building. And so the girls and I moved down here. I start navigating my way through the legal community, trying to figure out how to be a lawyer. Um, I did not have a great support system, but again, you do what needs to be done. And so I did work as a public defender for a short period of time. And then I went on out and hung my own shingle because that gave me a little more flexibility with my time and being able to build the business, learn law, and be there for my daughters, which was the priority, you
Okay.
know.
Okay. So since we're talking about relationships, we're gonna go back just a little bit.
Mhm.
What was your dating experience like before you got married the first time?
The first time,
Mhm.
oh gosh, so I was a college student. Um, I'd gotten out of the military active duty around 20-ish. And so, I think you're just out there pressing buttons,
Mhm.
I wasn't necessarily looking for a long-term commitment. I wasn't ready to be married. I just kind of dated people. No purpose, just having fun and living life.
Okay, and with your
Yeah.
husband, your first husband just seemed like, oh, this they seem like a keeper to one another. Like we seem like
Yeah.
keepers for one another.
I actually met him probably 5 years before we actually dated. And he tried to date me then, but he was a bit of a womanizer. So I was like, no, sir. But when we ran back into each other, he had changed and grown tremendously. And he was so different from everybody I had ever dated or met. And I told somebody just today, as a matter of fact, he was the first man that I felt a deep seated respect for. And that was a different feeling for me. Lust, love, all of that stuff was cool. But to be that age and find a man that you respected who was in your age range, that was a different feeling for me. Yeah,
Wow, that's interesting.
absolutely.
Okay, okay, so you're in Atlanta now.
Mhm.
Everything new. Then you had to start navigating dating again. So, what was your experience like dating in Atlanta? Because dating in Atlanta for women is hard, and I know it's
Yes,
hard everywhere. I think it's
absolutely.
especially hard in LA. So, how did you navigate that being a single parent, and being a professional woman?
Well, I think I had to be a whole lot more creative than I would have liked to be because one of the things that I find was different for me and having daughters is that I didn't bring men around my children at all.
Mhm.
So lucky for me, I was self-employed. I would date when they were at school. When they would go to visit their dad or my mom was in town. So there was a lot of moving parts. I can remember my daughter, she's 17 now, the middle child, the one I was pregnant with. She asked me one day, why don't you know any men? You can't get a man? And I just cracked up laughing, right? So I called her dad. I said, let me tell you what she said. He was like, oh, you're doing a good job then. Because, you know, I was dating people, but my kids never saw me with anybody. And so I just had to be exceedingly creative. Yeah.
So I had to kind of do the same thing, even with my husband now, like when we started dating a little bit more exclusively and officially. Let me say, before we became exclusive, should I say, we would do a lot of lunch dates. And then I finally got to the point I was like, you know what? Like I don't have a lot of lunch date time because I'm working too. So like
Yes.
someone's got to give. Something finally
Absolutely.
gave. But yeah, I mean, totally. So, but also my experience was I found out when I was probably like 30 and I was in a long-term relationship from like 30 to almost 40. I kind of felt like because same way, I didn't really expose my daughter to any men, that I felt myself like being drawn a little bit too soon to the person I was with for 10 years because I was like, well, I don't have a lot of time. Like he seems cool. And so I don't feel like I dated enough.
Mhm.
Like it was like, okay, went a step further than a lot of the other dates that I went on, but maybe I should have waited a little bit longer. Did you feel any of that, like any pressure, like, okay, I don't have a lot of time. He seems really cool before you met your second husband. Did you experience anything similar to that? Or do you feel like you dated well enough to the point that when you got together with your second husband that, you were good to move forward?
It was probably an 8 or 9 year gap between my divorce from my first husband and me starting to date my second husband. So I think I did date enough. And by the time we got together, I was pretty settled in who I was as a person. You know, of course, we wish things could have gone differently in the dating process and absolutely in the marriage. But I think there was nothing I could have done to prepare any more than I had prepared. It was a long time between that divorce and the next marriage.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting that you find a lot of women and a lot of professional women as well who hit 40 or older and they
Mhm.
have never been married at all, period. But somehow you were able to bag two.
Two, two. And I'm gonna get a third. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And so there's something there that I usually, tell people, but how were you able to, what do you think it was about you and how you approach relationships for you to be able to marry a second time before you were 40, correct?
Yes. Well, actually, 41.
Okay, 41.
41 when
Okay.
when we got married. Don't do what I did. Yes. I think for me, men of a certain caliber are accustomed to women trying to grab onto them, right?
Mhm.
And what are we doing? What are we? I was not that girl. Um, you could go and you could go tonight. Like I did not. I have the gift of goodbye, and so I think what happened with my second husband, he was accustomed to women chasing him and trying to pin him down and all of this and all of that. Our story is it's a funny story. We were neighbors for like 8 years and didn't talk. The only time we communicated was about his dogs because he was a terrible dog owner. So I was like, you got to give me your number because I'm gonna call you when these dogs are out. But 2 weeks before I moved, um, we ended up having a conversation and he cut my grass and I was supposed to cook him a meal as payment for the cutting of the grass, which I didn't do. And so I ended up taking him to lunch and we found out that we both played chess. And so for 2 weeks before I moved away, an hour plus away, we played chess every night, right? So you're neighbors with somebody for 2 years, you play chess every day for 2 weeks, and then you move away. And
Wow.
I'd given him my number. So he started calling and asked could he come up, and we actually started dating after I moved away.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, insane. And so I did have him around the kids because the kids knew him. We were neighbors, you know. Um, but I think what made him, because he didn't believe in monogamous relationships, he didn't want to be married, and I was cool with that. But the fact that I did not chase him or try to pin him down, I think it was a little different for him. And it made him start looking at me differently, which makes no sense, but that's
Right.
how it happened.
Okay. So you got married eventually.
Mhm.
Did his position change on being monogamous in relationships?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that was crazy. I used to cook after church, right, on Sundays.
Mhm.
I would cook after church on Sundays and I'd have people over. And one of my best friends is a guy. And so he calls the guy, he says, you cooking? And I'm like, well, yeah. And the guy I ended up married to was very offended that I was cooking for another man. I'm like, that's my BFF. And
Mhm.
you and I are not exclusive. And what? You,
Right.
you understand? So he was like, well, I was thinking, I think I'd like to be exclusive. It's like, okay, cool. So yeah, we did the whole negotiating thing and we ended up, I still would cook on Sundays, but we ended up in an exclusive relationship of his making. I would have never tried to put that on him,
Right.
knowing that
Okay.
it wasn't something that he wanted.
Okay. So how long did you two date before you got married?
Oh God, here's the fun part. Yeah, I think about 7, 8 months, maybe eight
Wow.
months. Yes,
Wow.
yes. And full disclosure, my first marriage was the same way. We dated
Okay.
about 7 months, 8-year marriage, but we dated about 7 months.
But you knew both of them for a period of time
I did. I knew both of
before.
them, years before we actually dated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And kind of the same story with me. Like I knew my husband before we got married. We knew each other for like 14 years, but we were only
Oh,
exclusive maybe like 8 months
wow.
before we got married. So
Okay, so I don't feel so bad now.
no, 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 no. It happens. But so I tell women sometimes you need to look back, like the men you may have disregarded. There may be something
Absolutely.
there, especially if you're kind of like cool, good terms. Like maybe reconsider that. So
Absolutely.
if you're both single and ready. Um, so you had a baby as well
Mhm.
after 40. How old were you when you had your son?
I think I was 43 when I had Aiden.
Okay.
Got pregnant at 42, was 43 when I delivered.
Okay. So everybody knows like I have this whole pregnancy after 40 community. I'm like the
Yes,
ambassador out there somewhere.
yes.
And so I didn't know that. I think we probably reconnected on Facebook. And that's when I found out that you had gotten remarried. I was like, wait a minute, I don't think that's the same. the
It's a
same.
different
The
guy,
same.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And, and then she
Yeah,
had a baby. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And I think I remember thinking, yeah, she got like two husbands. And I'm still like, let me take my ring off. I'm still like nothing on my hands. But yeah, so that's awesome. How was your pregnancy? Like
oh man,
being
it was
40.
amazing. By far the best pregnancy I had. I was in really good shape. Um, it is a whole different animal when I'm because he didn't have any children. And so he was so excited and so attentive. And the energy during that pregnancy was a wonderful, wonderful energy. It was a great pregnancy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and I remember I think reading some posts. You guys just seem to be really, really cool and on
Mhm.
good terms, which is great. You guys know
Yeah.
you're no longer married now.
Yes.
But a couple months ago we had a podcast and I didn't know it was you chiming in because I couldn't see the names, but you had
Mhm.
mentioned that you felt like your second marriage was more about you proving to be a good wife as opposed to it being necessarily the best thing to do at the time. Can you explain a little bit about what you meant by that?
Absolutely. The other thing is actually he's here now. He's always over here. That's my boy now. We just wasn't supposed to be married. But one of the things that I find with the second marriage, I had a history. I didn't realize that at the time of not being honest about what I needed. I mean, you go to the military at 17, you go work at the post office, you graduate law school, you're a single parent. You don't need nothing, right? You don't need nothing. And so you present and show up in the world like somebody who doesn't need anything. You just have the companionship and you could take it or leave it. That wasn't true. That was a defense mechanism. And so when we got together, I was not honest with myself about what I needed. One of the things that I love about him to this day is he was consistently who he was from the day I met him to today. He's the same brother. Um, as I grew in wisdom and understanding who I was, I had to admit I had never in my life been honest about what I needed from myself or for myself or in a mate. And it wasn't something malicious. I just didn't know. right? So I'm going into this marriage thinking what everybody thinks. I want a happily ever after and all of this love and, wanting to give love. When the reality is subconsciously, I really wanted to prove to myself, not even to him, that I could be and that I was actually a valid person and a good mate, you know? And we do a lot of great things for wrong reasons. And that just adds to the burden of it, you know?
Right. So how did that manifest itself in your marriage? At what point did you realize, okay, I'm doing this more for me than as opposed to this union? When did you realize that?
I think not until afterward. All the
Okay.
lights come on. Hindsight is 2020.
Okay.
During, because he and I were great friends, we're still really good friends. During, you're just trying to make that thing go. You're doing building the plane while you're flying it. It took me after the marriage, when the marriage ended. I took a year just to reconnect with myself, to kind of deal with the residue of everything. Went to therapy, meditation, Reiki, all of the different things you do to get that residue gone. Um, and I had to realize that the way I managed my relationships, my whole life was just not healthy. It just was not healthy. And I wasn't
How
a bad person, you
right,
know.
right. How effective were those techniques in you getting back to the core of who you are as far as the meditation and the Reiki and all of that? How effective was that?
I think they were essential because I had been going to church my whole life. Church is amazing. I love God. But I do think that it is a piece of the puzzle. And you got a whole picture on the back of this box, and you're not dealing with the trauma from your childhood and not dealing with the way you view love or how you show up in the world, not dealing with the fact that you don't have peace or there are other things that you need to work on that have nothing to do with your potential mate. So they were life saving to me. I really believe that there's a light that I have now that I just didn't have at other points in my life. I feel like I got another chance, to be a better me. So they were very essential for me.
Okay. So, traditionally, especially in the Black communities, therapy has
Mhm.
always been looked down upon. Like I see therapy totally different.
Yes,
I feel like before kids graduate high school, they should go to therapy, especially this day
I
and age.
agree.
These kids, it should be incorporated in the school system, but that's a whole another conversation. But I mean, I think it's kind of vital to have someone. I remember hearing someone say not too long ago, it's another attorney who was saying she just has a therapist, not like when something goes wrong, but just
Absolutely.
all it just has a therapist. So when something does go wrong, she's got
Absolutely.
someone there. Is that something that you've maintained? I know you went during that period of time. Do you still go every once in a while? How was your relationship?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I go once every 3 weeks, and it's not so much because something is going wrong. What I find as a professional and a single mom and a woman and a Black woman is that we're going, doing. I have 1 hour in a 3 week period that is dedicated to me and my thoughts and what I need and what needs to happen. Um, it's invaluable. It's sort of like going to get a massage or shopping or a pedicure. It is something I do unapologetically for myself, you
Yeah.
know. And she specializes in high functioning people. And so I've had experiences with therapists where I end up giving therapy to the therapist, not with, it's that's the way it was going
Right.
with this chick. Like she knows me now. We have a beautiful relationship. She'll spank my legs and get me on track. And I love having that dedicated space and time just for me, a time to be selfish and focus on myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I think especially as single mothers and you're a professional as well, people see you like as a superwoman, and then we almost kind of take on that role. Like I am a superwoman. I get
absolutely.
things done to the point that we don't ask for help, and we internalize everything to our detriment. So you
Absolutely.
definitely need that outlet, and it's okay to do so. Okay, so you had your second marriage, that one came
Mhm.
to an end. So what actually did you learn about yourself after your marriage and relationships going forward?
I think it's exactly what I said, that the way I was showing up in the world unintentionally was not me being my full self. It was my I got this self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there were times when I needed support, and the brother is not giving me the support because this ain't what you do. So I think what I learned about myself was that it is okay, like you just said, to acknowledge that you're human and that you need support and that you need help. And so I'm very, very careful now um, to think about what I'm thinking about. And when I convey a certain thing to a person or a potential mate, to be very clear about who I am and what I need and what I have access to that I can actually give. You know,
Okay.
I think I'm a much, much, much better partner now than I've ever been, um, just because my perspective on so much has changed.
Yeah. So what is your approach to relationships and dating now? Should I say dating because you're still a single mom at this point again. So has your approach changed any in the way that you date? So your daughter is older and she understands that mom does date and there is a world. Is there anything different in the way that you do it? And you have a son too at this
Yes,
point.
yes. So I have a 21-year-old daughter, a 17-year-old daughter, and a 7-year-old son. The girls and I mean, we talk about everybody. I've done the dating sites and all of that stuff. And I show them the pictures and we talk and I tell
Mhm.
them where I'm going. And, I'm very open with my daughters. But I think the big thing that has changed for me when I was younger, even in my 40s, when I started dating my second ex-husband, um, it was always, is he the one? Is he the one? Is he going to be the one? I don't do that anymore. What I have come to view connection as is it's a pocket of space and time. And I don't focus on the end result. What I focus on is today and the right now. And so I've been able to make beautiful connections with people and have wonderful conversations without the whole pressure of, are you the one? Are we going to get married? Is it going to be, we're going to be, nah, I don't do that anymore. And not because I don't care. I absolutely do care. But I do think that there is value in connection and there's value in love, whether you get to keep it or not. And so
Mhm.
it's taken a lot of pressure off and I'm enjoying things
Yeah.
a whole lot
That's
more.
that's that's interesting. I remember when my husband and I when we became actually exclusive, I remember thinking like, oh, I'm not really looking for marriage now because by then I had turned 40. I was like, well, I'm not going to beat that clock. So I remember thinking, okay, so we'll just date. In a year from now, if we're still dating, then we can talk about marriage possibly. I mean, it ended up happening sooner than that. But I think that the fact that, yeah, you're not pressuring someone like, oh, when we're going to get married, relationship and all that, that helps tremendously, especially from a man's perspective.
Yeah,
Men are, Black men especially, there's so many women that are available to them and so many women who are trying to get them. So like you said, when you got married to both of your husbands, you were kind of like, hey, you can go, you can stay like
absolutely.
but
Absolutely.
there definitely wasn't that pressure that you were putting on, which is a game changer. Just talking to you just seems like, you confirm that as well. It was my experience, your experience as well. Just, kind of don't put the pressure on them and let them just know you and get to know you on your own time. Um, so at this point, would you like to get married again? Is that a possibility?
I'll say the short answer is yes, probably. Probably, yes. But what I found, and this is something that I totally did not do in either of my marriages. I come from that generation. You do everything together. You're best friends. Rah, rah. Men don't do that. They have hobbies. They have things that allow them to pour into themselves individually. And one of the things that I've started doing, I absolutely pour into myself now. I've started running again. I'm training for a half marathon for my 50th birthday because I'm 49 now. Yes. I've signed up for a golf clinic. I've never played golf in my life. I bought me some really cheap golf clubs from from Walmart, and I'm going to learn how to play golf now. I bought myself a really nice camera, taking up photography. I am pouring and investing in myself, and so whenever the brother does come along, it won't be the same situation where I need him to just pour into me 24/7 and we're joined at the hip. I have a life and a life that I love. And I'm looking forward to having organic connection with someone who makes me feel more alive and lucky to have him, and vice versa, mutuality in that thing. But I have my own life, which I just don't think I really had either of those other times, you
Right.
know?
Well, first, you look amazing. You don't look
Thank
anywhere
you.
near 50 at all.
Thank
But
you.
yes, the hobby thing is so vital. So today I posted in the private group that we have, like, what are your hobbies that you do outside of your
Oh,
partner? And I haven't gone back to look at the responses
mhm.
yet, but that was actually what I was trying to get,
That's a great question.
was
Yeah.
that the fact that a lot of, and again, I hate to, kind of put it in with Black women, but that's my experience. A lot of
Yeah.
Black women just don't have hobbies. And then when we meet a man, we put all of our energy into this
Everything.
man, and it's kind of suffocating to a man. I mean, I know at one point, well, I've been having all these kids since I turned 40, 41.
You are
So,
so funny.
so I hadn't had a lot of time, but I just recently reached out to someone to start taking tennis lessons.
Nice.
Before I got with my husband, I was doing adult softball. So yeah, so you do have something to look forward to, something that's something that's yours. But yeah, the point of that was you need to do something, without saying it directly, that is for you. Have your own hobbies, because like you said, men
Absolutely.
have hobbies.
They
They do.
do.
If it weren't for the fact that women look good, a lot of times we wouldn't even get their
That's
attention.
facts. That is facts.
Yeah. So it's important to do that. So they're like, "Hey, where you going?" Like, you want them to, "Hey, where you going?"
Exactly.
Well, I have this to do. Well, okay. So it makes them think about things. What do you think is the biggest reason why a lot of Black women, professional, successful Black women, are single these days?
Hmm. I think that's a loaded question. One, I think it is a lot of what you said. There are just so many single women, right? And God, that's a tough answer to articulate. Um, I think that in my conversations with a lot of the brothers, one of the things that they complained about with professional women was that, I got my own stuff, I got my own this, I don't need a man. I'm assuming that that would have to be a problem, right? If you feel like your male energy is not welcome or needed because, we got everything except the man, I can imagine that that would not be an easy situation to walk into, you
Right.
know? And I think that a lot of men don't give women their own chance. If you had a bad experience with a successful woman, then you just lump us all into the same category and think we all are acting in a certain way, which is not fair. I do understand it, but that's one of the things that I say to most of the men that I have the honor to sit in their space. Brother, you got to give people their own chance, because one size doesn't fit all. So
Right.
I don't know. I think organic connection is difficult, and I think the higher you go on the rung, it becomes that much more difficult.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. It is. Well, hopefully, we're creating a dialogue and between both men and women, and women can kind of see the things that work and may not work, or and kind of work on themselves as well in the
Absolutely.
process. So I'm going to ask you a couple hot seat questions. Now we're going to. Oh, no, no, no. Let me go back. You also
Oh, okay.
changed. I want to talk about your career as
Mhm.
well. So you started off practicing. What areas did you started practicing in when you first moved to Georgia?
Criminal, all day criminal. Yes.
Okay. And how long were you in the criminal arena?
Oh God, probably about 10 years. Probably exclusively about 11 years.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
after 40, you actually changed practice areas, which I think is so interesting. I've always said, I remember going to doing like a lot of career days, and I would talk to the kids and ask everyone what they wanted to do, and everyone would say whatever they wanted to do. And I would tell them, well, the amazing thing about law is that you can practice in any of those areas that you want to, because the law is a part of that. But
Yeah.
you changed, but at the same time, once you kind of started practicing in it, and you've done it well, and you've been successful, you get to a point, you hit 40, you're kind of like, you don't want to start all over. You don't want to experience that insecurity, that learning curve, and you know
Absolutely.
what you're doing. But you changed areas after 40. So you changed from the criminal arena to what arena?
Family law. Yes.
Wow. Those are the two areas
Yes.
I was like, I don't want to do either one of those. And I did both of those early in early on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, they're totally different. So what made you change from criminal to family?
Well, my honest truth is that I had been praying, asking God to relieve me of that assignment. I feel like it was very needful for who I am and how I move in the world. I needed the experience of practicing criminal, right? Because I saw things as black and white. Criminal broke that all the way down, that varying shades of gray. Everything is not the way it seems. So I got the lesson. I'm good. Can I start practicing criminal law?
Mhm.
Because for me, I care about people so much that it was putting my light out, right? If I didn't care, boy, I would have been rich. But I genuinely care about why people do what they do, how this is affecting their families. It was really wearing me down and just snatching my peace completely. I mean, 10 years was enough, and so I had been praying. And I said that if a door opened, I was going to take the opportunity. And so I did get an opportunity to cross over in the family. And, after law school, you just believe you can learn anything. So I took advantage of the opportunity. And so I'm doing exclusively family law now.
And how is that?
Yeah.
How do you like that compared to criminal?
Okay. Yeah. You still got to drink a lot of vodka. I'm just saying.
Yes, because
Still got to drink a lot of
you're
vodka.
taking on the personal issues of people. Um,
Absolutely.
and I'll tell you what I learned about relationships when I was practicing family law was I remember one of my last divorces that I did. The young lady was kind of like, well, I need closure from this person. But they should have never been together in the first place. But she was like, I need closure. I remember thinking, you are never going to get closure. And I took that in relationships as well. Like people, sometimes you just don't work. And
Absolutely.
there's nothing that another person can say to satisfy what you think you need or want to hear. There's nothing. You're not going to be together. So yeah, but it was a lot. Just relationship. People do
It
stupid things,
is.
and some people were very vindictive and mean and evil. It was a lot for me. So my hats off to you for doing family law. But what is it that you really really like about family law?
What I love is that I love relationships, right? Relationships are my thing. So
Yeah.
what I love is that I get the opportunity to walk people through some of the most difficult points in their relationships. Period. I get to speak into people's lives at a time that they don't have a whole lot of hope, and so um, the way that it benefits me though is I don't have to go through all of these different scenarios to learn different things about relationships. I was telling a brother the other day, every day I have proof that relationships don't work, right? But I get to see some of the reasons why they don't work. And one of my hashtags, I put it on my post all the time, is focus on yourself. Um, I'm learning more and more that if those people and myself and other people would focus more on themselves and the things that they need to heal, life would just be a whole lot better for everybody. You know, it would be a whole lot better for everybody. So I'm able to, through my practice, the practice of family law, help people to change their perspective about the relationship ending or the situation with the kid and help them to focus on themselves and to get through that thing and move on. So
And that is why you were counseling some of your therapists because
exactly.
things like that. But no, it is. They
Exactly.
say,
Yeah,
counselor at law, attorney at law, and you
absolutely.
actually do counsel people. I remember
I
having to do
do.
some of the same things. You don't have like the certification of being a counselor in that respect or a therapist, but you still definitely are counseling. You can, get a closer look at relationships, why they're working, why
Absolutely.
they're not. And it actually is really beneficial. Just like if you're a therapist, you're seeing all these different types of relationships. It benefits you personally as well. So I mean, yeah, it's great. I know the thing that I enjoyed the most about family law was mediation. Like that was my thing, was like mediation. But
Yeah, yeah,
no one was happy at the
absolutely.
end. I was a little bit more happy because I was like, this just makes sense. But nobody was happy. I was like, I got to get out of this. But I'm
Absolutely.
glad, you have that calling and that passion to do so. Okay, so now we're gonna get back to the hot seat questions. First one is, have you ever had an over aggressive pursuer?
Yes. Yes, I have. Not over aggressive to the point that I have to get a TPO. But definitely, I said no. and they did not take the no as an answer. Yeah, I have, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anyone that you regret not pursuing or you regret breaking up with?
No, not at all. I think there's a reason why things don't work out. And just because you have more knowledge now or you're better suited now at that particular space and time, the stars didn't align, and that happened for a reason. So
Right.
that my answer would be no to that one.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you would never do this now, but have you ever told someone that you love them and you really didn't in the past?
Have I ever told them that I love them and I did not?
Mhm.
See, that's a tough one because I'm from Louisiana. We love everybody, right?
Okay.
Wait,
You know
wait,
what I mean.
yeah. I think I probably have, right? That's really bad, but I think I probably have. And you I don't think it was a malicious, manipulative situation, but you're into the whole blah, blah, blah. And when you hang up the phone with people, you just say, I love you. I tell my kids and my family, I love them all the time. And I think it may have dropped out, a time or two before. Um,
It slipped on her. Okay.
yeah, like I love you. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure I have. That's that
Okay.
Louisiana thing, though. It's not malicious.
Okay. Have you ever ghosted anyone? Have you ever been ghosted?
Absolutely.
Both
Yes.
ways?
To both of those. And I'm going to share something personal too. My therapist and I were talking about this a couple of months ago, right? I stopped ghosting people probably, I used to call it fading to black back in the day, right? Way back in the day, I'm about to fade to black. Um, but oh my gosh. Yeah, ghosting is such a devastating thing to do to somebody because, like you said earlier, there's no closure. And you don't know if you've done something wrong or they've done something wrong. It is the most cowardice, horrible thing you can do to a person because it's rejection and abandonment rolled into one with no closure. And so my therapist asked me, why do you keep picking people that
Uh-oh.
that you would want to ghost or who ghost you?
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, that's on me, isn't it?
But you don't know that in the beginning.
But
But we're not talking necessarily like the beginning when you first meet someone. Now, like after that first conversation, we're talking maybe you've known them for a minute and you've had
oh
multiple
no, I
conversations.
haven't done that in a very long time. I wouldn't do that. I think, like I said, the maturity level has raised, and you understand the devastation that ghosting causes. And I have been ghosted. This one brother ghosted me, and I wrote him a book via text, right? And
Uh-oh.
I have to say, though, he called me. He was very, very humble and very apologetic and explained why he did the cowardice thing. I tried not to, I think it's just devastating to do that to people. Just, let them know you're not interested.
Yeah, and
It's okay.
it's immature. It's the sign of
It
immature.
really is. It's the
Um,
worst.
but you have to get to that point to realize that. And it's
Yes.
not easy to actually call someone to let someone down, especially if there was some kind of chemistry there, if you like them. So, but yeah, it definitely is the mature thing to do, especially as the
It
older you
is.
get.
And having done this online dating thing, I've gotten a little script together when it's time to pull the trigger. What I generally tell them is, we everything got an expiration date. I tell them that in the beginning. We didn't got to our expiration date, and I'm gonna have to disqualify myself. And I hope that you meet somebody who gives you the love that you need, because I can't do it. I don't say that I can't do it part, but I just let them know, we've reached our expiration date, and I wish you well. And they've really respected that.
Really? Okay.
It's what I
So,
would have wanted.
what are the responses that you get to that when you send that message?
Um, I haven't gotten very many snarky things.
Okay.
Generally, they're very appreciative. I do get a couple of, but I loved yous, and I'm like, when? They realize they love you when you don't reach the expiration date. But
Right, right.
yeah, so that's pretty much it. But I loved you, or they appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Last question. What is the best quality in a man for you?
For me,
Hmm.
um, hmm, consistency.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, consistency is everything. consistency is everything. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
that's fair. Okay, I remember there's we're about to wrap this up, but there was somebody who went to law school with who had like the biggest crush on you forever. Like even after
Really?
we graduated, yeah. We would, still talk years after law school, and he would mention you every once in a while. Now
See,
I
I
don't
have
know.
no.
It's been a couple years since we've spoken, so I don't know if you two
Yeah,
have
you
ever
you
touched
you had to
bases.
text me. Let me know.
He was like, "There's just something about her," and I'm like, "Okay, you should say something." I don't. I
I
don't know what
guess
to
he
say.
said no. I'm not going to. Yes, text me and let me know
She
though.
was funny.
See,
Someone we
yeah,
graduated with, I believe. So now, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really enjoyed this conversation and your outlook. I love your responses to a lot of the posts in the group because they're just so like they seem very thoughtful. They're very kind of like neutral in a way, just kind of like let people do what they need to do and just very
yeah.
logical as well, and not judgmental and or any of that. So I love that
Well,
that
thank you so
action.
much, and thank you for the group. It's so needful in this day and age, and to be able to connect with like-minded people, even if we're not all together, just to know that there's a tribe out there who has that same energy. So thank you for creating that. It's very, very needful.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the thing I try to put out there, um, especially for women, is that you can be happy after 40. You can get married after 40. You
Absolutely,
can have healthy children after
absolutely,
40, and not to settle. Because I was there. I almost did. Was kind of like I know his issues, and everyone's gonna have issues, so I'll just deal with his. And that just was not the way to think. And
absolutely,
I'm so glad I made a different choice because and every day like I'm happy, like I really like my husband and I love my husband and all that. Not to say it's easy or perfect, but like as a person, consistency, he's very consistent. So I don't think I ever would have said that back in the day. Usually the answer is I want a person to be honest. Like it's kind of like, well, damn, do you really have to say that? But
yeah, you got to say
consistency,
it.
right, right. I like him to not be married,
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
but consistency
exactly.
is a good one. So I definitely would say that now. Like that has meant the world to me. Just someone that you can rely on and know where they're going to be, where their head is, and all that. So
Absolutely. And I want to add very quickly about my ex-husband, my last ex-husband.
okay,
Um we could have rolled that thing out. You understand? We could still be married today and just as miserable as the day is long. And so, like you were saying about the over 40, I think it took great courage for us to look at each other as friends and say, this marriage is killing my friend. You know what I'm saying? Because it was
mm,
putting all the goodness and all the light out. And so we go our separate ways. And then the things we loved about each other came back,
wow,
not so we could get back together and put the light out again. But to me, that was the greatest lesson in the world. That wrong connection at the wrong time,
yeah,
man, it takes your vitality away. And so the thing that I want to say to myself and to all of the women and men over 40, please don't settle, because you have somebody, but you're going to lose yourself, and it's just not worth that. It's just not worth that.
right, yeah. I went through a period where it was so stressful. I lost my hair. My back was hurting. I couldn't sleep.
Wow.
It was just bad. I just had
Get
like
it.
I felt like I couldn't breathe.
Yeah,
But then there was a fear of, well, if I don't stay with him, then I might be alone for the rest of my life,
absolutely.
And I think that's a very real thought consideration, but it's so not worth it. Because
Absolutely.
there are so many men who are looking for good women. So kind of leave your baggage behind or work on that
Yeah,
first. But yeah.
absolutely.
So again, yeah, thank you so much. Great conversation. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. And we look forward to Chanel being in as well. And good luck on your half a marathon.
Thank you. I'm gonna need it. Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you so much. And we'll be in touch with you.
All right. Chat soon.